Welcome to In Tune. I'm your co-host, Matt Rector, an aspiring luthier from Baltimore, Maryland.
And I'm your other co-host, Ethan Morset, a music producer and founder of Blue Haven Music based in Minnesota.
Our goal is to provide value to enterprising musicians, artists, and craftspeople by sharing our conversations and the lessons we've learned along the way.
If you like our content, help us out by following us and giving us a positive rating on whatever platform you listen to podcasts. Tune in for new episodes on the first and third Wednesday of each month.
This is episode 47. Today, Ethan and I are going to be discussing networking, specifically networking at conferences. Now, I have a little bit of experience with this, but not really from the lutherie or guitar world. This was from before I really ever, started doing this stuff. When I was fresh out of college, I worked for an export credit insurance company. And so I went to a few trade shows for that, but I really have pretty limited experience with this. So I'm going to let Ethan kind of take the lead here on this episode. Ethan went to a conference a little while ago and did some networking, and I think he had a really good experience with that. It was his first time, and he's going to be going to some other conferences here in the not so distant future. So he wanted a chance to talk through some of these things and talk strategy for networking. So Ethan, what do you got for us today?
Well, I am an expert on this subject. I've written many books on networking at conferences. The first tip I'd suggest for everyone is to get a little QR code printed on stickers and then start sticking them everywhere, like especially in bathroom stalls and urinals, because people will scan them because they're curious, and then you'll network and connect with people.
For a good time. You know who to call.
Yeah, no, I am not an expert at this. In fact, last November, when I went to the conference in LA, I was pretty nervous because I'm A, an introvert, B, have social anxiety, and C, never have been to an event like that before, so I didn't know. And D, I was traveling by myself by plane for the first time. So I was kind of anxious. So I'm definitely not an expert, but I am starting to become more aware of like conferences that are for what I'm trying to do, music production and music licensing. And I'm going to more of them. So it's just something that's on my mind now. Like I kind of wanted to just, I guess, talk about it to, I don't know, just see if we can glean any wisdom out of bouncing ideas off of each other and discussing conferences and experiences and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. The first conference I'm going on isn't until October this year, and then November. I guess I could just talk about what I did for the November conference as a starting point, like last year. What I did to like prepare. So I got a bunch of business cards printed. I made my business cards and then got them printed. And then obviously had those ready to go. I think I ended up using Vistaprint for that. I know you can use local print shops for that kind of stuff too. And then I had like a lot of people, they had QR codes on their business cards because QR codes can basically allow you to like have a virtual business card, like an extension of your business card with a lot of other things like a link tree, or other things. And so for that, I created a website, a page on my website that had like additional things like my portfolio and all that stuff. So I did that. I was told to develop an elevator pitch, which I did not use, uh, because I don't know, elevator pitches seem very formal, you know. Um,
I told you
and
to do that.
my production coach, so I don't know. Uh, it's not a bad idea because it gets you thinking like if you were put on the spot, how would you introduce yourself in a very concise
Hmm.
way? So it was a good exercise. I just didn't end up really using it because a lot of the interactions was making were more informal interactions, I guess. It wasn't with like top business executives and things like that, you know? So I feel like the way you introduce yourself has a lot to do with like who you're introducing yourself to, right? Like there's I feel like it would be weird if I treated like a casual interaction at a networking conference like something really formal, you know? Um, so I don't know. I don't know how valuable that was, except for the exercise of like thinking about how do I introduce myself in a concise way, right? Um, Other than that, I just like kind of researched the conference, figured out what panels I was going to go to. Um, I got a little pocket notebook that I brought with me that I used to like um, keep track of like whose business cards I had and then like what things we talked about so that when I followed up with them, I could just like send them an email saying, "Hey, we met at the conference. We talked about this, you know, just to kind of jog their memory on who I was, and then remember something about them, and then I use that to kind of track that. Um, I think you and I were talking about this. I didn't really set any conference goals before I went into it, because I just kind of wanted to, I think, wet my feet and just see what it was like, and not try to put any pressure. And that worked fine for me. I ended up meeting a lot of people anyway.
Hmm.
Some people swear by setting like goals for I'm going to talk to X amount of people and do and introduce myself to this person and blah 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 blah. I didn't do that. Maybe I will at future conferences, but it was kind of my first conference for music, so I didn't really worry about that. Um, I don't know. I mean, I feel like that was pretty much it. I mean, outside of the like normal stuff like getting the hotel reservation and plane tickets and all that crap figured out. Otherwise, like it was just looking into getting the program for the conference, figuring out where I was going, business cards, elevator pitch. I don't know. About it.
Nice.
What was your experience like? I know yours wasn't for Luthery, but um did
So,
you
I mean, I wouldn't say that I really have that much experience with this because, to be frank, I was really young. I was fresh out of college and I was really going with my boss, and they were doing most of the networking. I did do some of this in college too. I went to a case competition. We got second place, our team, but you know, I did some sort of networking with people there. But um, again, it was really a lot of networking more for the people who were part of the organization,
Mhm.
rather than like there were the students there for the case competition, and they could network as well. But like there were actual business professionals sort of more networking with each other, and I
Mhm.
think a lot of them were happy to talk to us, but it was either they were looking to hire someone or it was a situation where they were just sort of happy to entertain speaking to a young person who's aspiring to maybe be a professional in that industry. um so I really don't have a ton of experience with this. um yeah, I guess that's pretty much the extent of my experience.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know that I have anything particularly useful that I got from those or that is very applicable, at least with what we're talking about right now.
Are there any Luthery conferences, like big conferences out there put on like by what is it, Mortis and Tenor, or did I say that right?
Mortis and Tenon.
Mortis and Tenon. Like usually it's like big names like that will like put on some kind of conference or show or whatever.
Sure. I mean, I wouldn't really. Mortis and Tenon is big in the niche hand tool woodworking world.
Mm.
But in the woodworking community, probably the most well-known woodworking publication I would probably say is Fine Woodworking.
Mm-hmm.
Probably followed by like Popular Woodworking. And they do stuff like that. But I don't know if it's really for entrepreneurship. I think it's more maybe. I don't really know. There are a couple Luthery organizations. So there's what's it called?
The Guild of American Luthiers.
I think it might actually. That's maybe what it's actually called. I think so. There's one that's called the Guild. I don't know if it's the Luthiers Guild. I want to say it's the Guild of American Luthiers, and that I think is a sort of West Coast based organization. And then on the East Coast we have. I think it's called Asia. Like it's the acronym is Asia, and it's like American Stringed Instrument Artisans.
Huh.
And I don't know how regularly those meet. They used to meet every other year where they were staggered. So the one on the East Coast would meet, and the next year the one on the West Coast would meet. But during, the pandemic and everything, both of them stopped. And I don't know if either of them have had a physical conference since then. I don't know. I would assume that maybe they have, but I haven't seen anything. I haven't actively sought out these organizations really.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know. But there are some organizations like that out there. I just am not sure how active they are at this time.
Yeah, well, and I don't know, like, I wonder, you think, like, what kind of connections, I mean, any connection could, in theory, like, be a benefit to you. So if you met anybody, like, and stayed connected with them, then, like, maybe, I mean, who knows? You never know the people you're meeting and how they're, like, who they're going to introduce you to or how they're going to impact you or whatever. I don't know, like I have, this, like I've traditionally been somebody who doesn't really want to have to care about networking and social media and all that kind of stuff. But like mainly because it makes me uncomfortable, I feel like, and I think sometimes networking feels fake, and it kind of is, right? Like you're putting an impression out there of like, this is who I am, and it's a cookie cutter version of who you really are. So it is kind of a little fake, but at the same time, by doing what I've been doing, I've connected with, so I'm meeting with I'm working with two mentors right now for music licensing that are fairly well connected. But to get to that spot, I joined Musician on a Mission. That was that online class I took, which gave me access to a Facebook group in which I like put something out there for looking for people for coaching. And I got connected with somebody who was also a part of that group, who connected me with, I don't want to say names, I can say first names, who connected me with a guy named Ed. Um, and he was the one who first recommended me to join Taxi. So then I joined Taxi, and then I met my current coaches, Tracy and Vance, through Taxi. And like they're gonna introduce me to other people at one of the they're gonna be at one of the conferences I'm going, or both the conferences I'm going to. And like they already told me, yeah, we'll introduce you to a bunch of people and like that kind of stuff. So it's just like it's been just one hop at a time, like, and I never would have probably had met them or knew they existed had I not gone through all the other hops to get there. So it's just like kind of shows the value of like, you know, they're not buying my music, but they're well connected in the community. So I'm like that much closer to being like PMA, the Production Music Association. It's like, from what I've been told, the biggest association, and they put on the biggest conference for like music licensing in the entire nation. And like they know the person who runs that organization like pretty well, right? And then like this conference that I'm going to that's put on by PMA, like a bunch of people who are like well connected and have like libraries are going to be there. So I'm going to have the opportunity to bump elbows with people who can actually like do something with my music. So like, and then I'm going to have mentors there that can introduce me to people, you know? So like, it's just like that to me, like that's the value of networking, right? Like, because otherwise I would not have had those, I would not have met the people that I'm with right now that are helping me kind of take the next step, you know? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about. Like you think about, okay, I would have never met this person had I not done this. And I never would have done this if I hadn't done this, you know? So it's interesting to think back, okay, like, has networking really helped me get to the point where I'm at? Well, yeah, it has. I've learned a lot from like both of my coaches that I have, or technically all three. I have a mixing coach who I've been with for a couple of years, and then I have my music licensing coaches who I've been with for like a few months. Both of them were ultimately, I can trace how I know them back to when I joined the Musician on a Mission program. So it's just interesting, you know?
Yeah, it is funny how things work.
But I do think that like that has caused me to have more success than I otherwise would have. So I don't know. I still don't really love the idea of networking, but I do think it's like a necessity, or something that can really help. And it can be fun too, right? Like you never know who you're going to meet. You might meet another musician that you just like really click with. And like for me, a lot of musicians collaborate on stuff together. So you could meet a musician that you really gel well with in the songwriting process and develop a long-term like working relationship with, or, you know, and like now that I know these people, when I go to these conferences again, I won't, last year, I didn't know anybody. This year I will know people. I'll recognize people that were there last year. I'll have my mentors there. So it'll be that much easier.
Yeah. Were your mentors there last year or no?
Yes, they were, but I didn't know them yet. I met them at the conference.
Okay.
And that's how I ended up getting connected with like taking lessons from them and everything.
Nice.
But yeah, I don't know. Networking is not really like, it's not necessarily, it is kind of a specific skill set, but like it's also just socializing, right? Can you think of anything like I mean, you're in sales, right? So like working with people directly is just part of your job. Can you think of any like tips or things to think about when you're like approaching people to like create the best or like a good first impression, or You know what I mean? Like anything you can think of that you think about when you're like maybe meeting with a customer or talking with somebody like a supplier or something like that.
It's a good question. I do work a lot with various vendors, with yeah, directly with clients, that sort of thing. I guess before I answer that question, I wanted to ask you, you said that you feel like networking can be very fake, and I think it can be, but I think it can also be very authentic and you can make real connections.
Hmm.
I personally, I don't think networking has to be fake. I think you can be your true, genuine self, when you put yourself out there, especially as an artist. I think people are looking for authenticity.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know, it's interesting. Do you feel like you said you feel like it's fake? Do you think that you have to be that way? Like, why do you
It's
say that, I guess?
well, I guess networking like necessitates small talk, right? And small talk is like very formulaic. It's like these are the proper ways to like introduce yourself, and in that sense, it feels not
Okay.
authentic.
Yeah, I
Like
get that.
I don't lie about myself. Like I say, oh, I like this, and oh,
Yeah.
I like that, but like I my default self does not want to go approach random people and be like, oh, hey, you been to this conference before? Like that is not authentic to me. I still believe in the value of it, but and I believe that like it's good to still push past that because small talk is how you get into big talk, right? Like actual real
Mhm.
conversations. That's what I mean though. I'm not criticizing it or saying it's completely not authentic, but like that's kind of what I mean. Like I feel like don't you feel like a lot of people feel like small talk's not very authentic? Like it's like let's
Yeah, I
talk
would
about the
agree.
weather, let's talk about like, you know what I mean? Like it's the I don't know you, so I'm going to use the default things that we both know that people are okay with asking and answering, like how's the weather or like wow, beautiful day we're having or uh
I can see what you're saying with that. I understand I didn't really, I guess I wasn't understanding what you meant by that.
but no,
That
I'm
makes sense.
I don't otherwise I don't feel like I'm being inauthentic. Like I'm trying to tell be myself, but like stuff like that, I don't know. Um I feel like it makes people uncomfortable like to small talk in
Well,
general.
it does when it's you talking, to them.
Oh. so do you
It's
like
specifically you.
so do you like apples and stuff?
Is that your opener?
Do you like apples? I like apples.
How about them apples?
Whoa. I connect over apples.
Well, you have to ask them what kind of apples they like. Are you a Honeycrisp guy? Are you a Fuji apple guy?
Yeah,
You
if they
know,
say they like Honeycrisp, I'm be like, "Pff, basic. Basic.
no, Honeycrisp is where it's at
Yeah, they're great, but everyone says Honeycrisp is the best.
because they're amazing. I
Well,
mean, if you say Red Delicious is your favorite, you cannot be friends with me anymore.
I personally like Granny Smith apples, the green tart ones that aren't
They're good
very
for baking.
that are good for baking but not for eating.
I mean, you can eat them, but they're a little tart.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, if I'm being honest, I'd probably say Honeycrisp too.
Ha!
Uh,
Got 'em!
I mean, I was just kind of joking, but
I know.
but
Anyway, oh, go ahead.
you were going to say your
Oh, you asked
tips.
me. You asked me for my tips. Well, start with an opener about apples. That's tip number one. And then when you're finished, you say, "How about them apples?"
Okay.
Um,
Cool, cool.
no,
I'm picking them
honestly,
apples up.
I would say the biggest part of people think I think a lot of times what people think about sales and marketing and advertising things, those are all different things, but things in that vein. I think a lot of times what people think is it's about convincing people to buy things that they don't need. And that can be true. I would say if you are poor at it, if you're not doing a good job, at least for me with my clients, I want my clients to have a really fantastic experience so that they're going to want to come back to me in the future. They're going to want to refer their friends. If they buy one thing from me, maybe they are interested in buying something totally different down the road. I work in the jewelry industry. And so like I work mostly with watches, but say I sell someone a watch and they have a really great experience. And then a few years later, they come back to me and they're like, well, I want to get an engagement ring or whatever it is. So I think if you are just sort of being a cheap salesperson and you're just trying to upsell them and make another quick buck, and the tendency then is your customer will leave with a bad experience. And for me, it's more valuable to give them a solution that's good for them, that they want, rather than giving them that sort of experience and then they never come back. So I guess where I was going with that is I would say the first thing is just listening. So it's really important to listen more than you speak and ask open-ended questions so that you can get an idea of what they want. So a good salesperson isn't just trying to upsell you. They're trying to assess what it is that you actually need or are looking for, and then find the best solution for you and direct you towards that. I would say the way that you can apply that to networking is, everyone at that conference is there for a reason, right?
Mm-hmm.
They all have a goal in mind. So try to figure out what that is. Ask them open-ended questions about, their goals, their business, what they're looking for, and see if it's something that you think you could, that you could help them with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even help connect them with someone else that might be a better fit for whatever they're looking for. But again, even if you lose out on something this one time, if maybe they have something else in mind in the future that you would be a perfect fit for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that's probably the best way to apply that in that situation is just make sure you're listening, and kind of getting to know people. It's like what you're saying. It starts with small talk, but that's how you get to know what people are looking for, what their wants and needs are.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that would be my first tip. My second one would really just be with maintaining your sort of relationships with those people. I would say clients, but not sure what you would call it, but with the people that you're networking with.
Mm-hmm.
So I think what you said about having that book where you like kept your business cards and wrote notes about, I think that's all really, really good. And then making sure that you follow up with them in a timely manner. Because otherwise you might talk to someone, but they might talk to 500 people or whatever, at this conference or whatever. And if you don't follow up, they probably won't even remember who you are, and
Mm-hmm.
so that is really important. Yeah, I think, I don't know. That's what I can think of, I guess.
I think the other thing, we should probably wrap this episode up soon here because we have another one we need to record. But I think the other one, not that I'm an expert at this, but one thing that I've paid a lot more attention to, and this is going to sound super basic, is good eye contact. Like, I feel like a lot of people, like, you're drilled, like, when you're younger, they drill that into you, like, oh, you need to make good eye contact, like, it's important. But, like, I see so many adults that, like, I'm sure it's hard for you to notice. I'm sure I even do it sometimes, but I see, like, a lot of adults that, like, you can tell they're uncomfortable or don't want to engage by just avoiding eye contact. Um, and, like,
That's me. I'm very, very bad at that. I'm horrible. I mean, even when I'm talking with my friends, I'm terrible at that.
I'm staring straight at your eyes right now. Straight at them. Look away, Matt.
I'm so bad with this. And I'll be out at dinner with Abby and she will like someone will ask me a question and I'll be answering, I'll be responding and I like won't even be she'll like nudge me and be like
Look
'cause-
at him.
yeah. Like I'm so bad at that. That's something that I'm really trying hard to improve on, but it's not in my I don't honestly I this is something that might be a bad habit that I picked up from something that was overall good. But you know I did martial arts for a long time
Yep.
and in traditional uh like so I did taekwondo for many many years and in Korean culture at least traditionally you didn't like you weren't supposed to make eye contact to like your superiors.
Sure.
So like especially when you're like bowing and all the formalities and like that stuff. And I did that for, 20 years. So like I think overall that was a great experience for me obviously, but I think that might be a habit that I sort of picked up at least a little bit from that. And then just also when I was younger, just somewhat from a lack of, confidence or, whatever it is.
Yep.
But I'm trying to break that habit and be better about that. That is a struggle for me.
Because, like, I don't know. It seems like one of those things that, like, shouldn't make a big difference, but, like,
Well, it makes a huge
when
difference.
you start paying attention to it, you're like, it does. It's like the way people react to me when I have sustained contact versus like jittery, like avoidance contact, eye contact is so much better. And then like I don't know. And then when I see people that are like avoiding eye contact with me, I try not to judge because like I know what it's like to be like self-conscious about like that kind of stuff. But like I know they're uncomfortable, right? Like and that creates discomfort in other people because they can sense that discomfort. So it's like I just have found that like they drill that into you as a kid. You know how you learn a lot of things as a kid and then you just like take them for granted and you don't really think much of them and then you get older and you're like, "Oh, that actually is really important." What they were saying like actually did did mean something and like I didn't think much of it because I'm like, what could eye contact do? I mean, come on. It's just looking at people. But when you realize that it's your first point of contact and there's all these little things that are sub-communicated when you like avoid eye contact with people or make eye contact, like you realize like, oh, that person doesn't want to talk to me, or oh, that person's in a bad mood, or oh, this person is really uncomfortable right now. Like, it does matter. Like it's it's the first impression of every conversation,
I think I'm also really guilty of this at work. Not because I think sometimes people find me to be a little standoffish or hard to approach. And I think it's partially because I am always so like with my role, I'm always doing 10 things at once. And I'm always so busy that when someone comes to ask me a question, I'm usually simultaneously like writing a message or doing another task. So a lot of times I will just answer and not even look at them. And I'm just like typing, like, cause I'm so focused on like trying to do this and that. And I realize after they walk away, that it probably came across as kind of rude.
Like, don't
And
interrupt me. Yeah, like.
And I like think about it later, and I'm like, oh crap! That's not how I wanted that to come off. But then
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I'm getting a little off topic, but yeah, I'm bad at this, and I'm trying to get better. Is what my point, and I do think that it makes a difference, and I think people grossly underestimate. I mean, you and I have talked about this before, that we wish that we could live in a world where everything was based on, your talent and your merit and your hard work and your efforts. But the reality is that charisma, networking, like that stuff, it is important and it goes a long way. And I think people don't think of it a lot of times in the right way. They don't think of it as a skill to be developed. And it is just like anything else, just like, the rest of your skills. There are a lot of really fantastic, incredible woodworkers out there, right? But they aren't necessarily incredible business owners. And I think sometimes that's because not everyone aspires to do woodworking as a business, for one, but I think some of it, sometimes is because they put a lot of effort into their craft, but then forget about those aspects.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if you think about it too, like literally everybody right now in your life, besides like your parents, like in a way is all a sort of networking, right? Like, people through other people. That's the only way you really, or through things that you've done, whether it's school, college, your job, like those are all technically networking. Like a conference is just a more like formal, like we all have this in common, let's get together and do it. But like, no matter what, like relationships don't just spontaneously appear in your life, right? Like almost like I met you through, like we weren't trying to network, right? But I met you through high school, right? And I made friends through you. Like I probably met Kyle through you, and then I've met people through Kyle. Like, so like, I guess you could almost argue that like, whether you have like a business intent for it or not, like networking with people is inevitable because you have to socialize with people to like who's going to buy your product if you don't talk to anybody? Who's gonna, want to collaborate with you on like a video or a song if you don't talk to anybody? So like, I feel like it's just kind of unavoidable. Not saying that unavoidable is like a bad thing. It's just, it is inherent in life, and that's why it's important,
Yes. I just think I realized that I think we, in this fall, will have known each other for 18 years. There will be literal adults
that were born when we met. What? We need to commemorate it by going on a Appalachian Trail hike
again. Yeah, AT 2.0. We'll pick a harder route and not tell Ryan. We'll tell him it's easy.
Yeah, and then they'll be like, guys, my ankles hurt.
Sorry, Ryan, if you're listening.
No, it's we'll have to commemorate it with a hiking trip if we can get it in the schedule. Be cool.
Man, that's kind of crazy now that I'm thinking about that.
Well,
worst 18 years of my life.
We are
just kidding.
We were 4 years younger. Like we've known each other. Yeah, we've known each other longer than well over half our lives, right? Because you were like 14 when we met, but we've known each other for 18 years.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
Wow, that is crazy. All right, well, we're starting to age ourselves, and I'm starting to feel old, so I think
Yeah.
it is about time to wrap up this podcast before we
Yeah, it's bedtime for me.
turn
It's
into skeleton.
8:30
Yeah.
p.m. here in
Old man
Owatonna.
Ethan.
Time to go to bed.
Old man Ethan is ready for bed. All right. Do you have anything to add to this conversation about networking?
Nope. Not at this time.
All right. Well, I think that is it for this episode. Get out there, put yourselves out there, meet some people, tell them about yourself and what you do, but also remember to listen and engage with them and make disturbingly direct, long eye contact. Until next time, stay tuned.